Good evening, everybody. It's a beautiful 12th of March, 2025. Coming up this episode of the Crusty Podcast, episode 350. Oh my God, 350 episodes. Good for Canada or great for China? That's right. Mark Carney is the anointed new prime minister, and based on his track record and inside dealings and who he's selected for his cabinet, it doesn't look good, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness. Interesting indeed. Viewer discretion and listener discretion is advised because I will swear, smoke cigarettes, and make fun of our new leaders as per usual. Ha 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 ha. Stick around.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me.
Yes, sir.
There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worthless.
From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast, a Canadian veteran's point of view on political, social, economic issues, and life. Here's Crusty.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen, episode 350, King Carney. Oh my goodness, good for Canada or great for China? I'll get to that momentarily. This podcast is also brought to you in part by and supported by Veterans for Freedom Network. That's right, Stand 2, Veterans for Freedom. And coming soon, Veterans for Freedom TV. That's right, veterans such as myself and other like-minded individuals hopefully be part of a network, and we'll do podcasts, comedy, all that good stuff. Anyway, stay tuned for that stuff. Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. Hope everything has been well for the past couple of days. My apologies for the microphones issue I have been having. Something to do with my settings and all this too. I think the warranty has expired on some of my equipment. Anyway, I'm going to check into it. But needless to say, I'm in the hunt for a new microphone for this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I managed to get this thing working here. Took apart the cards, did some maintenance on this. I didn't take apart my soundboard just yet, but still, if there is trouble with this, you're hearing this, my playback is good, but if you, my audience, is trouble hearing this, let me know, please, right away. Anyhow, as the title card said, good for Canada or great for China? Now, Mark Carney is now the PM. He won't get sworn in until at least Friday, but there's been rumblings and rumors that he's going to be adding some more to his cabinet, his makeshift cabinet, what have you, anyway. And Mr. Mark Mendocino is back in the scene again, as well as that frickin' lawyer weirdo guy, Liametti, who took over from Jordy Wilson, Raybould. Oh, my God. Now, this Liametti guy has been caught in public saying that nobody owns any property. And he was one of the architects of the bail reforms that we see today. And yet, why would Mr. Carney, who wants Canada to thrive, pick him to be part of his cabinet? That's what gets me, ladies and gentlemen. Why would he? I guess the further the agenda, right? You know, I guess to further that agenda to make sure everything's copacetic and everyone gets along, right? Which is all bullshit. So obviously, he's not off to a good start. And regardless if he's only going to be in power for a few weeks or not, who knows? There's speculation that they will call an election. There's speculation that they won't call an election. My speculation is this: the sooner there's an election, the easier it's going to be. Now, I'm going to play a little video here from Brian Lilley and his description on the whole Carney, Blarney, Farney fiasco thing here too. And I'll keep another video from a like-minded individual from his Facebook page there too, who's going to explain some of the dealings that Mr. Carney has as we speak. So I'll just cue this up here momentarily for you, ladies and gentlemen. Just a reminder, too, if you like and hear what you see, click like, subscribe, and share this podcast all over your social media platforms. Do not be shy, right? Let me know where you're watching from, all that good stuff, too. I don't care if you're in North America. I don't care if you're in Europe, anywhere in the world. Let me know where you're watching from, please. And we can go from there. And I'll keep the captions up for you all, too. So you can decide. Like I said, this is Brian Lilley from Sun Media. Yeah, he's got a pretty good spiel about the whole Mark Carney thing. So please pay attention.
The fallacy of Mark Carney taking over Canadian politics. Hi, I'm Brian Lilley, political columnist for the Toronto Sun. Liberals chose a new leader on the weekend. They chose Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of Canada, governor of the Bank of England, man behind the push for net zero, no pipelines, no natural resource extraction. That Mark Carney. It's not really much of a change from Justin Trudeau in his cabinet, especially when you consider that most of Carney's backers were Trudeau cabinet ministers, and he's brought back two former Trudeau cabinet ministers as his top advisor. Marco Mendocino will be his chief of staff. David Lametti, Trudeau's former justice minister will be a top advisor to Carney. Remember, these were the two guys joking in text messages about how many tanks to unleash on protesters in Ottawa just days after the Freedom Convoy arrived. These are the guys who brought in things like the gun ban that wouldn't pass Parliament because it was objected to by every group, including First Nations groups, that brought in legislation to reduce mandatory minimum sentences for gun smuggling and gun trafficking, and brought in bail as the de facto position for everyone. So that's who Carney's top advisors are. The same as the old guys, people with radical positions. But now Carney is trying to push the narrative, and the media in this country is trying to push the narrative that he's already closed the gap, that he is essentially leading Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. Simply not true. Look, the latest poll for Post Media by Lilley, the most accurate pollster in the last several elections, shows that the Conservatives are at 43% versus 30% for the Liberals. Now, when you put Mark Carney as the leader, it shrinks a bit. It becomes 41% for the Conservatives to 33% for the Liberals. That's still a significant lead. That's an 8-point gap. That is a majority government, no matter how you slice it. But Lilley also asked Canadians questions. Who do you trust most on certain issues? And this is where it gets interesting. Let me pull up the poll and break it down for you. On the question of who would best handle the cost of living crisis and inflation, 33% said Pierre Poilievre, 27% Mark Carney. In touch with the realities of today's Canada, 33% Pierre Poilievre, 22% Mark Carney. Has what it takes to stand up to Donald Trump, 32% Pierre Poilievre, 28% Mark.
See, I shake my head at the whole cost of living issue. Doesn't matter if you're liberal, conservative, NDP, or it depends how you handle it, but I don't think anything can handle it properly, because Mr. Poilievre basically doesn't have any stance against the equalization issue, and he doesn't want to open up the Constitution, which he should, assuming he's elected. Anyway, I'll carry on.
Carney, and understands concerns of people like me, 31% Pierre Poilievre, 18% Mark Carney. If you look at polling aggregators like 338canada.com, they've still got it as 39-33 for the Conservatives. And that is including polls by companies like Ecos, which are outliers and that I dismiss outright because of statements and claims made by Ecos President Frank Graves saying that he wants to make sure that Pierre Poilievre never becomes prime minister. That should discount him from everyone else's numbers and equations. Maybe that's why CBC's poll tracker still has a 10-point gap. You don't believe me? Look at CBC's poll tracker, 40% to 30%. Conservatives leading by 10. The idea that Mark Carney and the Liberals are suddenly the runaway favorites for the next election is nothing but a media narrative by a national press gallery that is obsessed with Mark Carney and who hates Pierre Poilievre as much as most Canadians hate Justin Trudeau. So Canadians are willing to move on. They're looking to move on. Sure, some were parking their vote with Pierre Poilievre. That's why the gap has closed somewhat. But it's not as if there is suddenly a rush of love for the Liberals again. Let me point out once again, all the same people that were around Trudeau are now behind Carney. All the same policies are there, other than they'll scrap the consumer carbon tax and increase the carbon tax on things like steel mills, which will mean lost jobs, especially when coupled with Donald Trump's tariffs. This is a bad media narrative, one designed to bring about a certain result, to try and encourage more people to say they'll leave the Conservatives and back the Trudeau-Carney Liberals for a fourth term. Is that what most Canadians want? I don't think so. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment down below. Share this on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
Yeah, that would suck if they had to come back for a fourth term. Now, that would be a really weird election. Let's say the election is called, okay, and then everything goes hunky-dory as in any federal election should. I know I've been part of one. And all of a sudden they win. Then I would have to tell you that the system's rigged, or there's too many people out there that think, okay, he's going to be better than Trudeau because he's a little more richer and a little more smarter, a little more refined. But he's just as corrupt, ladies and gentlemen. Don't buy the hype. Don't let someone butter you up a shit sandwich and call it a submarine. You know what I mean?
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And you're back to episode 350. Good for Canada, great for China. King Carney. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Crusty. Just a reminder, too, if you like and hear you see, click subscribe, share this podcast all your social media platforms. Do not be shy, ladies and gentlemen, and do what you can to help a Canuck out. If you feel like donating, links are in the description. I'll leave the Brian Lilley story in the description, too. But it just, when you look at the situation this country has gone through the past few months, it's just been a real shit show after shit show after shit show. Parliament was prorogued, the big words, Crusty, prorogued because the prime minister couldn't face the fact that he screwed up. His ego wouldn't allow it, right? And now they're encouraging this tariff war. Now, today I saw how Doug Ford doubled back on his threat of cutting electricity. Now, regardless of how you feel about the whole Trump issue or what's going on, like, can we not focus on Canada? Can we not focus what's going on right here? Okay, there's some of yous out there that might blame the whole thing on Donald J. Trump. Yeah, he's kind of a goof, kind of a bully. Okay, but in a way, he incentivized people to actually get off their ass and lead to the best of their knowledge. Now, I've seen better leadership from toddlers than I've seen from the Liberal Party, and I don't care who they voted in. That's a whole different conspiracy and shit show to begin with, too. All these registered voters for the Liberal Party, and only 159,000 were counted. Interesting, eh? So think about that. And now everybody's making a big deal because he's such an economist and such a great guy. He's lived in New York for most of his professional life. He also carries a Canadian passport, an American passport, and an Irish passport. So where's your loyalties lie there, Mark? They lie with Canada or your investments elsewhere? It's been proven that he has invested time and effort and money in pipelines in South America, in the Middle East, but he doesn't want to do it in Canada, right? He's in cahoots with David Eby, BC's premier. They don't want LNG now, but they want to put a stop to these tariffs. So if you want to put a stop to this and put a stop to that, don't you have to have money to back it up? Right, pal? What better way to make the money than revenue from oil? Interesting, right? Now, people keep praising Mr. Carney, saying, oh, he's going to get rid of the consumer carbon tax. Well, we're still going to be paying for it one way or the other because come April 1st, carbon tax is going up and MP pay raises. Oh, my. Slap and tickle for your pickle, right? So what's that tell you? So regardless of the smoke and mirrors and what's going on here, okay, it's obviously Mr. Carney has some loyalties to other places, other people, right? Other places, other people, and he just doesn't give a shit about you and I. Anyway, here's a video from a Liam Out Loud. He's on a podcast called Blender. He shares it with another guy. I have watched it a few times, Blender News, and he's got a nice little quip here about Mr. Carney's dealings, right? And I'll just cue this up for you, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, you decide. Use your best judgment. It's quite the interesting take on it too. If you get a chance to watch Blender, please watch Blender News. They've got some great topics they go on to with, and they don't mess around.
Carney. These policies, ranging from pandemic control to climate mandates and mass migration, are designed to erode national sovereignty in favor of centralized global technocratic rule. Chatham House claims that, quote, COVID-19 exposed serious gaps in how the world anticipates and manages health crises, reinforcing Chatham House's call for stronger international cooperation. Translation: the world didn't lock down hard enough, mask fast enough, or vaccinate enough people. A report even states, quote, crises and shocks, including disease outbreaks, financial crises, and conflicts, can create windows of opportunity to trigger universal health reforms. When institutions see crises as tools for expanding control, they create an incentive to manufacture them. The Institute is also at the forefront of climate authoritarianism, calling for financial systems to be aligned with net zero goals. It advocates for the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM, a global carbon tariff regime that punishes countries with lower climate regulations. This is the same political class that called Trump's tariffs unjustified economic warfare, yet they push global carbon tariffs with a straight face. Chatham House also aggressively promotes mass migration, urging nations to balance security concerns with their obligations to protect refugees. In practice, this means overriding national sovereignty in favor of mass resettlement policies dictated by international bodies. Despite its Western branding, Chatham House is deeply tied to Chinese entities, including the Embassy of the People's Republic of China, China International Capital Corporation, and other state-backed firms. More revealing is its collaboration with the Development Research Center, or DRC, of China's State Council, a direct policy link to Beijing. This partnership, established during Xi Jinping's 2015 UK state visit, facilitated Chinese engagement with Western elites on governance strategies. China's 2050 plan aims to replace the United States as the dominant global power. Mark Carney, through organizations like Chatham House and Canadian Politics, appears to be carrying China's baton, ensuring decades of political subversion continues under the Liberal Party. The question remains, who exactly does Mark Carney serve? Mark Carney is being installed.
Exactly. Who does he serve, ladies and gentlemen? Who does he serve? Who did Justin serve, right? You know, you can toss the whole puppetry thing out there. You can toss the whole, he works for this company or that company, big pharma, big oil. We've all heard about big oil since the 80s. Big oil do this, big pharma that. We're at a standstill right now. How things are going. Okay. Look at all the money that was spent on this Liberal campaign. How much of this money could have been spent on helping those people that are living in their cars, or people that are waiting in the food banks, or people that are looking for work, okay? Now, Ruby Dalla, apparently she's, taking the Liberal Party to court to get back the money that she raised to legally run as a leader of the Liberal Party, to be the, inserted PM, whatever you wanna call it, the king or the queen of the Liberal Party. Now, rightfully so, she had some pretty decent ideas. I'm just not really impressed with the Liberal brand right now because it's been tarnished, since the better part of 2010 as far as I'm concerned. Actually, no, I take that back. The Liberal brand I grew up with is nothing like the Liberal brand I saw in the 90s, okay? So I will say I have not seen the Liberal government perform very well since the better part of 1993. Now, somebody might challenge me on that, somebody whatever, because I remember how the military was treated. And yes, I know I keep referring to the military because I spent 20 years in the Army, and I was instructed by guys who went through absolute fucking hell in that decade of darkness, okay? And they heard every excuse from every Tom, Dick, and Harry about expenditures, and about procurements, and about upgrades, and about how we look in the world, and how we're peacekeepers, we're not soldiers, that kind of thing. And yet you gotta be a soldier to be a peacekeeper because you gotta make the fucking peace. You know what I mean? Right? I can go on for hours about this. I've talked to numerous people who have spent time from 1990 to 95 doing this, and from 1995 to 2005 doing that, and back and forth, paperwork and bullshit, bureaucracy. That's the problem. Too much goddamn bureaucracy, right? But what the hell do we know? No, but it's we're seeing a shift here, but not a shift for the good, a shift for the bad or the stagnant. Because as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Carney is nothing but Justin Trudeau 2.0, right? And between now and when they get back to work, finally, to earn their pay, that's if they really want to work for it, you know, you still see him with an entourage of people shaking their heads in the background. Oh, yes, Mark. Yes, Master. I'm helping. I'm helping. Uh-huh. We've all seen it, you know? So it's really, really time for a fucking regime change.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And you're back, ladies and gentlemen, episode 350 of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Good for Canada or great for China. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. Thank you for sticking around. And I want to say thank you to my new subscribers out there and people who have stuck around and gave me some wonderful comments the last time. I'm not sure if my sound effects are working, but I'm giving you a round of applause anyway. You guys are awesome. Don't ever change. And keep subscribing, keep liking, keeping the thumbs up, keeping those comments up too. And if you see this premiere, okay, and you see that little section of emojis there, it has 100% smiley faces, happy faces. Click on those too if you see this being premiered, please. That just helps me out a great deal, ladies and gentlemen. You know, it just keeps the likes up, gets the algorithm know, and there's Canucks watching, and I'm very, very grateful too. And if you do just want to see me on the Podbean, You can also find me on iTunes, Apple. You can find me on Amazon, and wherever you get your podcast too, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be shy. Okay? Last week I had 307 downloads in one day, and I'm quite grateful for that. So thank you. And most of them come from Alberta. So thank you, my fellow Albertans. I appreciate that immensely. I'm getting some more American downloads, a couple from Switzerland, from Scotland, Philippines, when I look at the world map, the whole thing too. So thank you very much to all my listeners out there. You guys are amazing. You're making this podcast even much more fun and exciting because I get people from all over the world listening, what I have to say. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. But anyway, I carry on. Regardless of how you feel about the Canadian identity, I always thought of Canada as the identity as Britain's friend and America's cousin. You know what I mean? A good everything else, a good friend to well, we have had a little blurb there, ladies and gentlemen, a good friend to the world. But when you look at our security and you look at how things are working in this country, we're not seeing that pride. We're seeing the notional pride because everyone's waving a flag now because of what Trump's comments were. Okay. When you think about annexation, think of this. Okay. It has to be done by vote or by economic annihilation, or it has to be done by force. Now, I'm sure the Americans have the spending power and the buying power and the manpower to outbid. Yes. But we could outbid and outbusiness too if we had the cojones and the leadership to cut the red tape, as Pierre Poilievre would say, and get rid of the bureaucracies and the gatekeepers that hold things back. We've had enough gatekeepers when it comes to the pipelines. Yves Blanchette is still rambling and ranting, saying, "Oh, Alberta oil is a dirty, très dirty," eh? Yet, a lot of people in Quebec don't mind dumping raw sewage into the St. Lawrence, and they don't mind buying Saudi oil or Nigerian oil or Venezuelan oil, okay, which is refined cheaply and put together cheaply, and 9 times out of 10 by slave labor. So when it comes to ethics and what's dirty, kind of reword that there, Mr. Blanchette. Hello, pot, this is kettle over, right? And what gets me sometimes with the disagreement of the pipeline in Quebec is they constantly say, "Well, the world doesn't need this, the world doesn't need that." Well, if the world doesn't need Canadian product, why do you need $13.6 billion dollars? That's my 2 cents on that too, and I'm sure there might be some Quebecers that weigh into that, and you're welcome to. I'm not disenfranchising the Quebec people. I will disenfranchise the piss poor leadership that wants the money, but doesn't want the work and doesn't embrace the work that it takes to get the money. You know what I mean? Because I've had some good conversations with some patch workers and a lot of people that work in the oil industry, and it's a dangerous job. And I've also had the honor of meeting some Quebecers that work in the oil fields, and they love the jobs, and they love the work, and they love the challenge, and love the qualifications they've been getting too. So when you sit there and say one market doesn't need something, yet you want the money, you're standing there in front of me with your fingers crossed behind your back, and you're doing it in front of the rest of the country too. So when you look at all the Mark Carneys out there and all the Melanie Jolies that try to talk a good game, they couldn't lace up if you played them. If you paid him enough money, like, and regardless of what Mark Carney's hockey experience is, he doesn't really understand teamwork that much, right? Because he's putting together his own little entourage of fools, buffoons, and idiots. And like Brian Lilley said, the tweet that Mr. Lametti and Mr. Mendocino had back and forth during the convoy, they wanted to put tanks in the streets. So what does that tell you about how they want to defend this democracy? Interesting, eh? Interesting indeed. They're full of shit.
Stay updated and follow Crusty Canuck on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, YouTube, and Podbean. Subscribe today and donate at crustycanuck.ca.
And you're back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the episode 350 Crusty Canuck podcast. Good for Canada or great for China? Who knows exactly what's going to be going on behind the woodworks? And you and I all know, okay, there's always some backdoor deals, some backdoor scratches, some backdoor endeavors. It's politics, right? Goes up there with real estate and the drug trade. Okay. It's been proven too that a lot of the, narcotics that have come to Canada that sounds like, Barbasol, it rhymes with Barbasol. That's the that's the best word I can think of, to come up that rhymes with that magic F word, 'kay? There's been hands in that from apparently from Chinese triads and members of the Chinese government, the CCP, not the Chinese people, but you're seeing the contrast here. You're seeing the give and take here. Why is it such a big problem? Why can't we figure this out? Because there's a lot of back scratching going on. I wonder what David Eby has to say about the whole issue when it comes to what's his take on the whole, Barbasol thing. I wonder how many wheels and deals he's got because when he was elected as BC's premier again, he gave everybody a raise, right? And BC is hurting the most when it comes to the homeless and, the affected, the addicted, right? And people lining up in food banks. But he had managed to find funds to give everyone a raise too. So basically put up and shut up, right? And like I said earlier, April 1st, more carbon tax for us and more MP pay raises. So there's money out there, ladies and gentlemen. It's just where they want to spend it. They don't want to spend it on you and I. They don't want to spend it on proper programs that keep people happy and healthy. No, they'd rather give it to this safe supply here. They'd rather give it to other nations that have to worry about their transgender issues and worry about their intersectional issues and their intersectional this and the wokeisms, rather than looking after the people at home. So, like I said earlier in the episode, why can't we focus on Canada? Why can't we? What's wrong with that? Right? Why can't we focus on that? It's passe, I guess, eh? It's only trendy to be a patriot if you go along with, the status quo, but you can't be a patriot if you fight for this country. Now, a good friend of mine and, a fellow podcaster, Frank Vaughn, he does some great videos, ladies and gentlemen. We may disagree on certain political opinions, but he's a upstanding, realistic, good man, and he's a family man. And I watched his show today, and I was just really impressed with just the passion he has. And he talks about how certain generations fought under the Red Ensign, and it was a different Canada up until 1965. Then after 65, you can see the kinda transition from the Pearson-ish to Pierre Trudeau-ish. And to some of my boomer crowd out there, I'm sure you'd understand what I'm getting at here, how this new mosaic of Canada came about. Now, I'm all for multiculturalism to a point where if I walk into a store, if I require a service, you have a choice, either English or French, you know? There was times I was in France, and I did my best to speak Parisian French because there is a different dialect to Parisian French to Quebec Français. There is. So you try to make it sound a little more fluid, and sometimes they giggle at you, and it's, "No, it's okay, man, I speak English." "Oh, okay, thank you." Just make it easier. But when you go to a foreign country and you try to speak their language, sometimes they get really, really flattered by that, and that's a good thing because 'cause you're trying to communicate. And sometimes they go out of their way to accommodate you, and that's just being polite. Other times they don't. But I'm not gonna disenfranchise a few individuals I've met through my travels who have done that. But we live in a country that is based both on English and French and share both histories, okay? And when you look at the colonial model, there were 2 colonials. There were 2 colonies, the French and the English colonies, both supported by the French monarchies at the time. And if you wanna get technical, the first Europeans that come to North America were the Vikings well before Christopher Columbus came around. So there was an idea of the new world that was already in the minds of some Europeans. Just some didn't wanna come back, some wanted to stay, and some didn't. But when you look how this country was created, it wasn't built on bloodshed. It wasn't built on slavery or colonialism. It was built on dividing and conquer. It was built on that because that's what empires did back in the day. And if you wanna use today's psychology to justify your grievance because of what happened 2 or 300 years ago, then you're just more lost than those explorers. So when I look at Canada, I look at it as my home and native land. It is on native land, sure, but home and native land because I'm here with everybody. I don't buy the land acknowledgement thing because I'm not trying to be rude, But I represent Canada. You represent Canada. My Canadian audience, you represent Canada. No, I'm not gonna say, Canada and this. I'm not gonna say Canada and that. I'm gonna say Canada and all people therein. And to my Canadian audience, so should you. That's just my take on it too. Anyhow, I have been Crusty Canuck on this beautiful 12th of March, 2025, ladies and gentlemen. As always, I wish good things for you all out there on this area of the country in my neck of the woods. It's gonna be another snowfall coming too, so prepare yourself for that. Make sure your vehicles are plugged in, you got enough fuel to get you to and from work. Whatever, pack your lunches if you're working tomorrow. I'm working tomorrow, so my lunch is already packed. My thermoses are good to go. Making sure I got enough coffee to last me through the day. I'm a bit of a coffee whore, ladies and gentlemen. Gotta have my coffee at work. I don't know what it is. Just gotta have my coffee. I'm sure my guts are gonna hate me more later, but needless to say, coffee, tobacco, I'm happy. Right? That's the thing. But look after yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Do what you can, help each other in these trying times, and keep the chins up. And you be the light in this manufactured darkness. Just stand by your morals, stand for what's right, family and friends, and we'll get through this, ladies and gentlemen. We will. And like I always say, humanity and merit wins the day. Take care, folks, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Hit it, sweetheart. Because I am hard, you will not like me. Yes, sir. There is no racial bigotry here. Here you are all equally worth.
This has been another episode of the Crusty Canuck podcast. Stay sane and thank you for listening. From Western Canada, this is the Crusty Canuck podcast.
Slap and tickle for your pickle, or
Well, smack my ass and call me Judy.